Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Her Version. For those of you that are already jumping on live, thank you for being here. If you could share this video wherever you are watching us at, so we can get into, I guess, have more people's eyes on us. This is the Her Version platform we have built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Jennifer Drago. Jennifer worked as a strategy and operations executive in the healthcare, senior living, and logistics industry for over 30 years, facilitating strategic plans and developing new programs and service lines. She holds a bachelor's degree in finance, a master degree in business administration, and a master degree in health services. Yes, administration from Arizona State University. She is a life fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be part of this show. You do an amazing job, and I'm inspired by your guests all the time. So very excited to be here.
You're the best. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. It's the guests that make the show, right? So my love and appreciation always goes to all the ladies who understand the mission of what a podcast is, the importance of sharing your story, the importance of inspiring others, and giving value. So I know you are doing so much right now in your community, in your world. So I'd love to kind of jump into all of that. But before we jump into that, I would love to bounce backwards a little bit and hear a little bit about your journey, a story, a challenge, where you had some pivots that happened in your life. I think it's so important for individuals looking at us now. Sometimes they're looking at us now and they're like, Jennifer's got all her stuff together. And it's not always that way, right? We all have bumps, we have bruises, we have challenges, big, little. And it's so important for individuals to recognize that we did it, right? We've conquered, we've stepped up, and we're still doing it to this day. And they can too. So, your challenge, your journey, what would you like to share with us?
Well, I started in healthcare after grad school, where I got my master's in health services administration. And what was interesting about coming into healthcare administration and hospital administration, which, by the way, I have to give my shout out to my fellow hospital administrators. I really think that is the hardest job in the world, trying to balance, regulations with meeting patient needs, with staffing challenges, with, the whole financial issues that come with many insurance programs and things like that. So I learned so much in my early career and was fortunate to have a lot of opportunities, even becoming a vice president early in my 30s. And, just being handed challenge after challenge, which I was excited about. It was during a time that I would say I was raising my family. And so, talk about a demanding job and trying to be, a present, involved mom. And so, again, here's another shout out to all the working moms who are balancing their work priorities and their family life. Really, that all came to a head at one point in my career when I said, I need to take a break. I need to step away. And I left the healthcare industry to start my very first entrepreneurial venture. And it was a meal preparation business. I don't know if you remember those places where you used to be able to go and make 6 or 12 meals for your family and take them home. They'd already be prepared and seasoned and ready to go in the oven. And did that right before the recession hit in 2008. And so had a thriving business for about 2 years, and then like overnight went, so that was interesting because it gave me more time with my family, believe it or not, when I was an entrepreneur. But then trying to overcome that failure in my life, I found now, fast forward, I went back into corporate world, was a strategy executive for a senior living organization for another 11 years, and then left that position and started my own consulting, which is what I'm doing now. And I've been doing that for, I'm going to be coming up on 2 years here shortly. But the interesting thing about this, and what I want to share with your listeners, because it's, I figured my confidence is fine, right? Going into consulting, I know my stuff. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm so excited to share my gifts, my talents with the world. And what raised its ugly head, my fear of failure, because my entrepreneurial venture failed. And I really had to face that head on and really think about, was that my failure? Or was that something outside of my control? I didn't make the recession happen. I didn't make people's buying habits change, right? So, but I had to face that head on and really go through and conquer that fear once again to be able to embark on this consulting journey. So I've had a lot of fun, and what I'm excited about today is sharing my skills and my expertise from my corporate roles in both strategies and operations with up and coming entrepreneurs, small business owners, and just helping them get further faster.
I love that. When you're talking about failure and that first venture that you had, what were the feelings what were the immediate feelings? Do you remember the immediate feelings that you had when you finally were sitting down and you're like, yep, that's the end?
Yeah, well, so I was fortunate in that my husband is a finance guy. He's a CPA, but he worked also in corporate, and so and a really strong businessman in his own right. And so when we went into this entrepreneurial venture, that meal prep business, I went in. Of course, I knew how to do business plans and pro formas, but I made sure that he agreed with my assumptions and what could happen. And I think that the thing that we did right was that we had an exit strategy. It was a new industry. I was in a relatively new franchise. I was doing something that was outside of, what I knew day to day. But we had an exit strategy, and we knew if at any point, certain indicators weren't met, that we were going to exit that business and not, lose our life savings and, lots of things that obviously happen in the recession. So I had a support. Yet when it happened, right, I'd undertaken some debt to get into this business because I had a storefront and I had a full kitchen in the back, and we had to repay that debt, and that hurt for a long time because I felt like, not only did I fail, but I kind of felt like I failed my family a bit, and so I remember those feelings, and they didn't go away for a long time. And then they did. And then, like I said, they came back years later, which, who knew that was going to affect me in that way.
Yes, I love your openness with that, because I think that that's the important part that so many people, first of all, are afraid of. But second of all, like, here you are,
Mm-hmm.
nothing,
Yeah.
it's like stuff happened, but nothing that you couldn't overcome happened. And you just kept moving along. You just kept taking the next step.
Yes. And, I think there's an important message here that we miss sometimes is when we want to try something new, like you said, sometimes we have to have faith and keep taking, putting one foot in front of the other. But having a solid exit strategy and knowing, work on this for, either this long or until this happens. I mean, most times if we don't give up, we're going to succeed in some way, right?
Yeah.
But if there are things outside of our control, like in my instance, it was important to have an exit strategy. And there were other franchise owners in that industry that I saw ride that wave down, down, down,
Wow.
waiting for the economy to turn. And, in the course of doing that, like I said, lost their life savings, some lost their homes, and we just weren't willing to do that. So it was an easy exit strategy, painful, but easier.
Yeah. Does
Yeah.
that industry still exist? I don't even know.
It's kind of interesting. I think it's transitioned a little bit. There are a few mom and pop stores, at least in my area, that still do it, but they are more about kind of semi-catering, if you will, where they'll, prepare the meals and bring them to you versus you going in and being able to prepare them yourself. So I think there's just different versions of it. It was an amazing concept. It just was a little bit before its time, unfortunately.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, I vaguely remember stuff like that, but not entirely. So it's interesting to me. When this happened to you, had you done any work in the realm of personal development or personal growth to be able to kind of take on all of those challenges in a more mentally and emotionally healthy way? Or had you not quite jumped into that yet?
I had actually, so I'm a big proponent of therapy. I'll just use that word in whatever way. Yes. And yeah, I had, even my husband and I are open. We had gone to marriage counseling at different points in our marriage. I've gone to personal counseling when I was in college, and, all still trying to get to understand trauma that happened earlier in our youth, and how we brought that into our marriage, or how it's affecting us personally. So I do think that strength helped me. And I will tell you that in just in this last year, when that fear of failure kind of raised its ugly head again, and I realized it's probably coming from this past experience, I was in the middle of a transformational coaching certification program. And, I'm a business coach, and business coaches help business owners set goals and create action plans and timelines and things like that. But the one thing that I learned in this program, and I was able to actually use it for myself, do my own inner work, was that every one of us as business owners and entrepreneurs, we will face certain limiting beliefs and blocks that come up very often from our youth or from past experiences. And I learned a technique to be able to deal with that. And so I was really fortunate this time around to be enrolled in that coaching certification program and to have those tools at my disposal so that I could help myself face and move through this block.
Yeah. I love. Are you going to share the secret with us, or is it a secret?
Yeah, no, it's not a secret. I mean, it's so easy that I don't want people to think like, oh yeah, whatever, yeah, I got that. Because it really does take practice. But the first thing is just really becoming aware of where the fear comes from. And in my case, mine came from a trauma that was 20 years prior, well, maybe 15 years prior. But in many cases, the fears arise from things in our childhood, as often as early as 7 years or 8 years old. And it can be, fear of rejection or fear of lack of approval from others. It can arise from things that happen very innocently in your childhood. So when you first become aware that you have this fear, and you think about, when was the earliest time that I felt that? And you can almost always trace it back to an actual experience or a story that you can relive in your mind. Sometimes it's painful to do so. But when you do that and you see yourself as that innocent child who had that experience, and that first creates awareness, right? But then you can kind of envision yourself giving that child a hug, and, the reassurance that they're not a failure, or that they are an awesome person that has lots of strengths, right? So that part becomes acceptance. And you really understand, part of that acceptance also is understanding, what is that fear trying to do for you, or that limiting belief? And most often it's trying to keep you safe and keep you secure. So go back to that child at 7, and they just don't want you to feel the pain that they felt at 7. They want you to be safe and stay in your comfort zone. So that's where, you accept what the fear is trying to do for you, keep you safe and secure. And then you move into action. And by moving into action and getting out of that comfort zone, eventually you start to quiet that fear. So it's awareness, acceptance, and aligned action that I was taught as a tool. And I think it's amazing. It's really helped me.
Yes. Yes. 100. I think that, so many times individuals go into entrepreneurship without this extra block of personal growth or personal development or tools to really overcome the challenge and the struggles that automatically are entwined with entrepreneurship. And meeting, coaches like yourself who have done that extra work, that extra block of work, and who understand the mental and emotional journey that entrepreneurship is, and has that asset to be able to really give to their clients when it's necessary, I think just is so important, compared to a coach who hasn't done that extra component of work. Because I think there's so many out there who have not dove into that.
Mm-hmm.
And they've just kind of just maybe bulldozed their way through. And some people are like that. Some people can just kind of bulldoze through all of the stuff and just make it out as a victor. But their clients who maybe aren't so wired the same way really need some help in that aspect as far as, mindset goes. So I love that. Speaking of your exit strategy, speaking of entrepreneurship, one of the main things that, that cause a failure, I'm assuming, is, lack of profits, lack of money, lack of customers, lack of attention. What's your take on, companies, entrepreneurs really being able to increase their profits or increase the clients that are coming to them?
I'm so glad you asked me that. Because, my work in corporate has been around strategy and operations. And so I feel really strongly that having a clear vision, a strategy for your business. And what is a strategy? There's a lot of mystery around strategy. No, it's not mysterious. It's having a vision of where you're taking your business, whether it's you as a solopreneur, you as a small business leader, or as a corporation executive. There has to be a vision involved of where that business is headed, and then having a clear roadmap of, at least for the next year, of how you're going to get there. And that includes, action plans and timelines and things like that. When you have that clarity, and part of that clarity when you're creating that vision has to be some focus, right? So I'm going to use myself as an example, coming into being a brand new consultant and coach and starting my business, almost 2 years ago, in this online world, and trying to figure out all the different social media platforms, and when should I go online, and when should I do lives, and how should I promote myself, and as well as networking in my local community, right? I was scattered all over the place, versus if I just focused on one clear offer that I had for my ideal client, and I knew exactly who my ideal client was, and I knew maybe 2 different ways I was going to market. They say, there's 8 types of traction. Know at least, the 2 that are going to work for you, and keep consistent with those until you see results. And then from there, we can talk about other client groups or other offers or other platforms, right? But you got to get successful with focus. And very often when I see someone doing a lot of work but not seeing the results, it's a lack of focus. And then perhaps they don't have, like we talked about, the vision and the roadmap of how do I implement that focus. So absolutely, that clarity will get you to a place where you're bringing in profits. So that's the number one thing I see entrepreneurs do, is do too much and be too scattered.
Yeah. How does one know what to focus on?
Well, that's a really good question. And sometimes sometimes it's not 100% clear. That's where a business coach can come in, right? A set of objective eyes who has walked your path before. That's another thing I would look for in a coach is, someone who has done successfully what you're trying to do, whether that's, start an entrepreneurial venture, but hopefully even work with the same types of ideal clients that you're trying to work with. Sometimes it is a bit of trial and error. And that's the tricky part, right? Because you don't want to give up too soon. If you're, trying an offer and it's just not resonating, or your message isn't resonating, you really want to continue to try different messaging and see where it's resonating. And yeah, sometimes that's tricky, Sabrina. So yeah, there's not an easy answer to that. You just have to try to get as clear as you can about who you're trying to serve and what your offer is, and then message, and don't give up too soon before you're, to move on to a different idea. Keep working on that one. I just listened to a coach who said, you see me being successful today, not me, but her, when she was giving her presentation. She's like, I'm 10 years in. She said, my first 5 years, I had one offer, and it wasn't immediately successful. She said, I kept refining the offer and refining the messaging until I got it right. And then I was able to add, some complementary services and things around that. But I thought it was really interesting to hear someone say, I worked on this for 5 years before I got it right, exactly right.
Yeah.
She really wanted to hone that in. So that's a pretty important message.
What's your thought process as far as an individual knowing, similar to the example you just gave there, which thank you for giving that example. How is somebody supposed to know whether it's them? So like they're doing it wrong, they're marketing it wrong, advertising it wrong, talking about it wrong, have the wrong title, in the wrong niche, or, well, I guess that's what I meant. So doing everything wrong or in the wrong niche.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know? Is there a sign of?
Yeah, I would say something that I learned early on in this, in starting my business. I really still want to create an online course that resonates with entrepreneurs and small business owners. I came out of corporate with a great idea. I'm going to teach folks how to do strategic planning, because, that's kind of the foundational key to, year over year success, right? When I went out, so this is one of the keys I think that folks should really try to do, is do some interviews with your ideal client, or whom you think your ideal client is. So get into a face group with, folks that you think you want to serve. Ask them, perhaps even in exchange for a Starbucks gift card, or, give them a cup of coffee. Ask them for 30 minutes of their time, and ask them about, the problems that they solve, what they're looking for in terms of services. And then at the end, kind of pitch what you think you want to offer. And it's amazing market research that you can do with your ideal client before you ever get started and ever waste time crafting an offer, or crafting a lead magnet, or crafting a course, right? You're going to learn from your ideal client a couple of things. One, what are their biggest challenges? Two, how do they describe their biggest challenges? Because you want to use their language in your messaging. Three, if you have an idea for a product, or maybe a couple different offers that you want to test with them, you'll see right away what resonates, what doesn't. Would they buy? You can even ask them about, I'm thinking of charging this for that. How does that feel? So that initial market research, I think, really informs a lot of people, and it's scary. And I think people skip the step because it's scary, right? It's part of putting ourselves out there.
Yeah.
We'd rather stay and plan and plan and plan and plan, maybe try something. But yeah, getting into action and doing some of that market research early on is going to tell you a little bit more about what your ideal client wants. And then as you know your ideal client better, you can kind of test messaging, and you'll know through the engagement that you have with your messaging whether it's working or not. And then you can kind of tweak it and try something new. So it is a lot of trial and error. Usually it's not the person themselves, but I'll give you one more clue about how somebody knows, maybe they need to work a little bit more. If somebody asks you, what do you do? And you describe it and they have this blank look on your face, you're not clear enough.
Yep.
Either your client group isn't clear enough, your offer isn't clear enough. Sometimes we have this tendency to, as a society, to talk in really, general terms. And we have to be as specific as possible about the transformation that we're trying to provide to our ideal client.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that more than I would like to count. And I love how you're talking about the cliche of really niching down and how important that is. And I also want to add, as far as these kind of, really big obscure words that sometimes people put in their pitch, that like the normal society is just kind of like, wait, what exactly? Can you dumb that down a little bit? I think it's important to show up as a professional, show up with knowing all the things, but you don't have to wow people right off the gate with just this extraness of vocabulary words. I feel like sometimes their stuff was written by someone who wasn't them. Like they actually said, like, hey, make this as like rich and professional and as possible. But to the average person, to like just the normal business owner, they're just like, I don't even know, what does that even mean? Like, what exactly is that? So yeah, I totally agree with you as far as people being lost with that. And then I also love how you're talking about the process versus profits. That's one of the things that I talk about all the time. Is we do entrepreneurs so much, they stay in the process so much longer than they have to, trying to make everything so perfect, and they forget that they have to jump into the profits and actually get out there and start, confronting people and introducing themselves to people and letting people know what they do.
Yes. It's interesting. I ran across one of my favorite quotes today, and it's very germane to this. It's from Zig Ziglar, and it says, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great."
Yeah.
Right. And that just speaks to what you're saying, is we have to get into action. If we want to know, does this message resonate, or are people going to buy my offer, or, even doing that market research, that all requires action. And we learn so much quicker in action, and we can pivot our business and move it forward so much quicker when we're in action. But, sometimes that fear tries to keep us in our comfort zone. And I think that's a great message that I know that you like to share with others over and over again. And so I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's super important, because just when you think you've said it too many times, there's people out there that haven't heard you, haven't heard it. I can't even tell you how many times I feel like I'm a broken record sometimes, and people will drop into my DM and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, how do you not know that? I feel like I've said it for so many, like all the time for years now. But people, it's attention. People aren't paying attention. Their mind is in other places, and until it's meant for them to hear, or they heard it somewhere else and then they're hearing it again, so it really sticks, or whatever it is, It's so important for us to be doing stuff like this, where
Mhm.
you're on a podcast and you're sharing information that you've probably said in other
A lot of
places
times.
to other people. Yeah. And you've written it and you've posted it and you've pictured it and you've videoed it. And yet still there's people who are like, what? I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest things with entrepreneurship is really allowing yourself to get into the feeling of kind of like a broken record, just like over and over and over and over again, different times, different ways, different, ways of doing that. As far as entrepreneurship and organization,
Mhm.
how close hand in hand are those two things?
Well, that's a really good question. I do think they're close, and I also think that they're related to the foundation that we've already spoken of, which is having a super clear vision of where you want your business to be in the next 3 years, and then having that roadmap of, okay, to get here in 3 years, I need to do these actions in the next year, and this needs to be my focus. And when we say actions, we're talking about 2 to 3 key things that you're going to do consistently to move toward that vision. When you have that clarity, then you can be focused. And here comes the organization part, right? You know that every week I need to do certain tasks that move me toward that action. And so if you focus on those tasks first and foremost, and everything else becomes kind of secondary to that, I think that brings clarity and a sense of organization to your business, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about being scattered earlier. It's really easy when I sit down at my desk, if I don't, review what my priorities are for that day and for that week. I can start with easy stuff, answering emails, shooting off social media posts, but is that really building my business? No, I have to focus first and foremost on the things that are going to move my business forward toward that vision.
Yep. 100. Writing things down. Thank you.
And I'm still, this is my paper planner. This is my
Yes.
full focus planner. I'm a paper girl.
Yes, girl.
Um,
Me too. Me
right.
too, girl. Me
Yeah.
too.
And I have my 3 objectives every day. I
Yep.
have my 3 objectives
This
for the week,
this
and
is
it
my
works.
yesterday with all my yellow marks from
Yes.
yesterday. And then this is today. I only have 2 yellow marks today. I have so much to do still. But yes, 100.
Yes. No, it's so important. And you just can't, there's no substitute for doing the work and doing the work in the right order, right? So,
Yeah. 100. What's your take as far as paper? I get so much crap for still being on paper.
well, I say whatever works, right? So like my kids who are in their 20s would never use a paper planner because their whole lives have been digital. So if you have a digital organizer that works for you, fantastic. I mean, the main thing to me is you know what your top 3 priorities are for the day. You may have other things on your to-do list, but those top 3 get done first, and then everything else gets prioritized from there. And if you can do that digitally, great. I'm old school. I love to see it in front of me all day. And I'm an Enneagram 3, which is, the achiever. So those check marks are really important to me at the end of the day.
Yes. That's so funny. Yeah, for me, it's the highlighter. I always have a highlighter ready to highlight all the things.
Yeah, awesome.
What's your thought as far as individuals who are maybe forcing themselves to be digital because that's where we are now, but they're mentally incapable, which is why they
You
can't
know,
seem to organize themselves. Do you think there's a
yeah,
thing?
I do. And I also think that, just certain people, right? So lots of creatives, um, artists, coaches, healers. I mean, I've worked with lots of people that just can't always see the priorities right in front of them, right? Or they're not right in front of them, but they have to figure out what those priorities are. And so that's where I think if you're a person that doesn't know what to prioritize in your business, because your genius is elsewhere, that's fine. Let's just say that's fine. You're great, but invest in the services of a coach who can help you, get that roadmap together, so that you do have priorities, and then you can focus your attention that way. Um, and to your point, if digital isn't working, try the paper.
Yeah.
And again, if you're a person that a long to-do list is going to give you hives looking at it, then put 2 or 3 things on your list that yeah.
Yep, 100%. I always say to work off of a master list. So have a master list and then transfer from your master to your daily. For me, I do it a little bit differently. I write stuff down and I roll over. So I have priorities that need to get done. Those are the ones in the top boxes. Like those are like have to get done. And then the ones at the bottom are like would like to get them done, but if they don't, they roll over to the very next day. I like the rollover system because I get sick of rewriting it by like the third day. So I'm like, it kind of really forces me. It's kind of like a trick that I do to myself where, I don't want to, I'm like tired of rewriting it. So finally I put it up at the top. I'm like, I'm just going to get this done. So I don't have to keep rewriting this thing over again.
Yes.
And that's kind of just something, but you have to know what works for you.
Exactly. And it's so different for everyone. One other thing I want to mention I don't think many people do as perhaps should, or, perhaps your listeners will find this useful. In addition to doing kind of a daily routine, one of the things that really moved mountains in my business was doing a weekly planning session. Only takes about 15 minutes, but I love to do it on Sundays, usually Sunday afternoons. And I kind of look at my whole next schedule, the schedule for the next week. And then I think about, okay, what are the big 3 that I need to get done for the week? And usually those involve I'm going to have to block some time to, write this chapter in a book or whatever it is. But by looking at my calendar for the week ahead, I can really block the time that I need to get the biggest priorities done. And when I do that, my weeks go smoother because I'm not ending up on, Thursday night or Friday going, holy crap, I still have to get that stuff done. Where am I going to fit that in? I'm out of time.
Yeah. How much time do you put into focusing on new outreach, cold calls, door to door, whatever you do?
I love it. Well, so so Mondays are my CEO days. And those are days where I update my dashboards. I see, how I'm doing, trending in engagement and followers and, website hits and all of those things. There are also the days that I do that outreach predominantly. So my goal is the equivalent of 3 new reaches a day. So 15 a week. And then I also like to reconnect with, a certain number of people that, maybe I haven't talked to somebody in a long time, right? So I'm going to do the reconnect emails too. But whether it's through text, a phone call, or an email, I do those on Monday, and I allocate at least 2 hours to doing that every single week. And, it's the equivalent of prospecting. People say that it's really like, most of our businesses are built on relationships. And so somebody may not be a client today, they may be a client 2 years down the road, but you got to keep that relationship warm in that process. And so, so I really try to do 15 new contacts a week. The other thing I do besides the time that I set aside on Monday is I network in my local community. So I have 3 groups that I'm a part of. One is the National Association of Women Business Owners, which they have chapters in most states, most major cities. I've really found that to be a high caliber group of connections. I have my local chamber of commerce, and then I have a women's networking group also in my regional area. And those groups I try to have between 5 and 6 networking events that I attend every month. So it's not quite one a week, or it is one a week, almost 2 a week. But those are the things that I prioritize in terms of building relationships and connections.
And then getting in front of people and then actually having something to say that's not all mumbled jumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to introduce yourself and allow people to know what you do.
Right, right. Yeah. And you probably have this too, right? You have your like pitch that you can do like this.
Mhm.
I've modified mine quite a few times.
Me too.
And,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, don't be afraid to change it up and try different things. So I just joined this chamber, my local chamber, and I went to a business breakfast networking group yesterday. And the pitches that these folks had were hilarious. I mean, they were like, what it said to me is, I can't be all dry coming in here. I need a little comedy in my routine too, right? So you might have to modify it for the, personality of the group that you're in too.
Oh,
But
that's so fun.
it was fun. It was fun. There was an attorney that got up and she's like, all right, it's divorce season. I know you don't want to hear that, but you've gotten through the holidays and we didn't, drive the family crazy, but we don't really want to buy the Valentine's gift. So if you're, if you're in this situation or anybody who is, that would make a great referral for my law practice.
Wow.
And it was like, we were laughing yet kind of,
Wow.
But it was, yeah.
That is so fun. And what a great reminder to people who haven't honed in on figuring out what that is.
Yeah.
Like these things don't just, I think a lot of times people think that they'll just come. And you have to sit down and you have to write it and like repeat it and make sure it's good. And then slowly it'll start to kind of embed into you. But just like flying off the cuff all the time, people can tell.
Yes. And if you have a group that you're a part of, like I have an accountability group, but I've done this in different mixers where we kind of pitch each other and give each other feedback on our pitches and then pitch again and practice. It's not the funnest thing to think about doing, but after you do it, you go, wow, that was so valuable. I love that feedback. Yeah.
Yes, I love that you're saying that. I run a mastermind Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we do elevator pitches every single day. We random popcorn style pick 2 people from the group to do the elevator pitch. And then every 4 weeks, the 4th week, every 4 weeks, we do, everybody does their elevator pitch and we do exactly that, where we do feedback and get into breakout rooms. We give like honest feedback about, what could be tweaked, what could be added, changes that they're thinking about making and whether or not they should make them. But we spend a good amount of time on that. What's so cool about that is I was just in a networking meeting with one of my girls from my mastermind, and all of the women they were all women. They were all going around giving their elevator pitch. That was like the first part of the meeting. And my girl, she messaged me in the chat and she's like, I'm not trying to be rude. Nothing against any of these girls. They're wonderful. However, I rocked my elevator pitch because of the mastermind. She was like, dude, I could totally see the difference between where I was and where I am now. She's like, I feel so professional. I feel like I got my shit together because I force them to work on that every single week because they don't know who I'm going to call on and they don't want to be embarrassed in front of everyone.
Important.
Yeah.
So important. And let's just also call out the other part of this, which is when you are confident in what you're saying, it shows and people want to work with you. And so how do you gain that confidence? By doing exactly the type of practicing that you're describing. So that's amazing.
Yes. Well, I love this. This was so much fun. This is right up my alley with all the things that I love to talk about. So I'm so happy that you spent some time with us. For those of you watching live, thank you so much for being here. I see all of the comments. Thank you so much for all of the comments. We appreciate you. If you want to share this wherever you are at, we so appreciate it because it gets more eyes on our content. If you're watching this on the replay, make sure you #replay so that we know where you're watching us at and we can send you some love. But Jennifer, I would love for you to tell us exactly what you do. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but exactly what you do, where people can find you, who should be reaching out to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I love to help business leaders. So that can be small business owners, or I do a lot of corporate consulting still, but get really clear on their strategy for their business. So that involves usually visioning, getting that action plan together, setting that roadmap, and putting together a dashboard so that we know where we're at. I do a lot of this work, and it helps people go from sloppy to intentional in terms of how they're leading their business forward. You can get in touch with me at my website, peaktoprofit.com. Right on the homepage, there's an opportunity to schedule a free strategy session. It's a no strings attached strategy session. You spend 30 minutes with me. We can talk about any questions you have about your business. And you can also get to know me a little bit better and how I work with folks. And one other thing I want to mention, Sabrina, if it's okay, I actually have a free gift for your audience. And it's, so we talked about that vision and how it becomes kind of foundational for your business strategy. I have a vision narrative workbook. And it's a really fun process to work through for your business, the very first step in the strategic planning process. So it's going to help your reader or your listeners just become that much better at knowing where they're headed. And you can find that on my website at peaktoprofit.com/F for freebie /vision. So if we can put that in the show notes, that would be great. But that's a freebie that folks can work through on their own.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Let me put it up on the screen just really fast so it's at least here. Can you say it again? What is it? Peak to Profit.
peaktoprofit.com/F as in Frank /vision.
Peaktoprofit.com/F.
F/vision.
www.
Perfect. You got it.
Thank you. Oh, I so appreciate that. You're the best. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the goodness. Why do you do what you do? Why this industry?
You know, I have worked for nonprofits most of my life. So I have this servant leadership heart, I guess, that was really born out of working in nonprofits. And so I just love to give back to others. And my thought coming out of corporate and going into this consulting business was, if I can help entrepreneurs and small business leaders amplify their impact using my skills and my expertise and any, goodness that I have to share, I'm all in for that. So more impact in the world.
That's awesome. Well, I can tell that you're passionate about it. And I so thank you for taking some time out of your, I'm sure, busy day to hang out with me and hang out with the Her Nation community to share some of your insight and goodness. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. If you resonated with Jennifer and all of the goodness that she shared today, make sure to check out her website, peaktoprofit.com. There's a freebie in the link that I have posted right here below. We love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure we all continue to rise. Thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are popping on and are new to this platform, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow. If you have an amazing story to share or something to teach, check us out at hernation.life. Be a guest, and I would love to have you here as a guest. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Until next time.